All right. Well, welcome to our July expert series with Exit Factor. Thank you all for joining us, whether you're joining us live on the recorded version. I'm really excited today. I am joined by a colleague, close friend, past fellow graduate of my husband's too. Chris and I go way back. But Chris Ronzio is the founder and CEO of Trainual. He is an expert on everything business process, training. He is the author of I think you guys hit number one bestseller, The Business Playbook. And I'm very excited to have him here today, not just to talk about his journey in the company and how Trainual can help you all, but also we'll do a soft announcement of we're working on a partnership together between Trainual and Exit Factor. So be on the lookout for those details to come out really soon. Chris, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for the invite. I'm excited to be here. Let's dig in.
Yeah. So I introduced you briefly, but you're an entrepreneur just like everybody else on this call. Why don't you tell us a little bit of your background and the story of your journey to founding Trainual? Because I think it's really relevant to everyone that's on the call today.
Yeah, sure. So I started as a kid entrepreneur, like I'm sure a lot of us did, just selling anything to my neighbors, carrying a fanny pack with dollar bills and business cards in it. So that was my childhood. When I was 14, I started a video production company, my first real business that paid taxes, and ended up running that company for 13 years. So I grew it through high school, through college, started hiring people when I had to be in class and couldn't do the work myself, set up an office in Boston where I grew up, then a second office out in California, a third office in Ohio. And by the end of my tenure there, we had over 300 camera operators shooting live sporting events in every state around the US. So it grew into this big operation. And my passion for that business was not video. It was not creative media. It was, how do I make it seem like we're a franchise? How do I look and feel and act in Kansas and Nebraska and Orlando and Seattle and Chicago the exact same way? So my whole focus was standard operating procedures, was building our culture, was streamlining how we did what we did. And eventually I sold the company. So first I hired a president behind me who took over the day-to-day. I stepped back as just an owner, and then I was able to exit the company a year later. And so it was this really intentional process. I went start to finish on this entrepreneurial journey, and it was amazing. So my next big thing was starting a consulting firm, helping other people with their operations. And as I went business to business, industry to industry, I saw process is industry agnostic. Every business, if you hope to have somebody else run the company, or if you hope to someday sell your business, you have to have your operations dialed in. And so I started working with people on that, and that eventually led to creating Trainual, which is the software to help you do it.
Yeah. And I love hearing your backstory, Chris, because you literally have been there, done this, built multiple companies, but built it around processes and systems, which is now why you can be trusted so much in the field, because you know exactly what an owner needs. So let's just tell us the purpose of Trainual. What is the purpose of the business that you guys are targeting?
Yeah. So when I came up with the idea, it was really two things. It was the training and the manual. So you make a manual, an operations manual, a franchise manual, whatever it is, a manual for all of the knowledge and how you do what you do. And then you invest in the training, whether it's an orientation or getting new people up to speed, teaching existing people best practices to elevate your profit margins, changing roles and responsibilities, or someday transitioning to a new owner. All of that is an experience of training. And so that's what our platform is all about. It helps you capture all that knowledge of a business, whether it's your culture, your market, your target customer, your packages, your pricing, all the way through who does what in the business and how you want things to run. And so it's this guide for someone else to run the business so that you can really just hand it over. And whether you end up selling the company or not, having this guide, this instruction manual is hugely valuable. And it really just, for us as owners, helps us, have the peace of mind, or helps us take our eye off it so we can focus on other things.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about, because I've heard you talk about this before, of how you created the software, right? Because you're doing your consulting with other companies, and you're helping them document processes and understanding this training process. And really, then when it came to having these systems and processes somewhere visible, it was kind of a mess, right? Before you created your software, what have you seen people do in the past to document this type of training manuals, systems, all that stuff?
Yeah, so this was back in 2014. I was fresh off the sale of my business. I was in all these entrepreneurial groups, and you would sit and hear a speaker say, invest in your systems and processes. And it feels like this intangible like thing out there. Like, how do I actually make progress? What is a system and a process? And so you had to start breaking down like, all right, well, I know I need documented processes, like a sequence of how-tos, a step-by-step, here's how you do this thing in the business. That's how you would delegate something to hand it off to someone, right? And so what I was doing was I was making Word docs and sticking them in Dropbox folders, or I was shooting videos on YouTube and having private links that I could send somebody. And so all of these like little systems that I brick by brick were packaging up in my business were just scattered documents and folders and videos, and it was everywhere. And so in 2014, 15, I'm working with, a few dozen consulting clients at the time, helping them build their manuals. And I had like, a master Dropbox account with like 1,000 folders shared with 100 clients, and it was chaos. And I thought there should be a tool that's designed for this, for capturing all that knowledge in your business, centralized in one place, so that with a click of a button, you can bring a new employee on, or you can share with a buyer, here's my business, here's access to my business. And then, you've got the peace of mind that it's an asset. It's something I've got all in one place. And so I've seen people do this with just fragmented, intranets and knowledge bases and wikis and course systems and password protected websites that they build on WordPress. And however you do it, if you're trying to do it, it's a good step forward. But once you've got a lot of that content, you've got a more mature business, you need an experience for your people that says, like, here is where everything goes. And that's what our software is.
Yeah. And I love it because you are right. And we do the same thing. Like when we're working with our exit factor clients, we're saying, hey, we need to document some core processes and systems. And I hope we give you guys a little bit more direction, and we'll tell you exactly what core processes and systems we need to document to prepare your company for sale. But it does feel very nebulous when you hear someone talk about that. You're like,
Yeah.
What do you mean by core processes or systems, or what exactly do I need to document, and where do I start? It's a very overwhelming project, even though it seems so simple. So I know we've got some other questions that I've lined up for you too, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, now that you guys are further into the journey as a company, it's not just like when somebody logs into Trainual, they don't just have to start from scratch, right? You've got all this content and templates and everything already set to help your clients.
Yeah. So you said an awesome word, which is nebulous. It can feel kind of crazy, or it feels like this blank slate if you try to start doing this work alone. And so what my vision for this was I wanted documenting your business or your playbook to be a little bit more like filling out a worksheet, like there's some guides. I know, like, it's asking me questions. I know what finished looks like. I know when I'm done. And so we break it down into 4 areas of your business. And so the first one we call your company profile, which is really just like your culture, your story, the stuff that everyone in your business needs to know. So this could be like anything you'd teach someone in their first day orientation. It's like, what is our founding story? Why did we get in business? What's our mission, our vision, our core values? What are maybe some key milestones along the way in the company? What are our target customers? What do they look like? The industries we go after? What do we sell? What do we charge for it? Like, this is the basics of any business, and that's your company profile. So that's one section of the product. Then it gets into the people section, which is who does what in the business, roles, responsibilities, your org chart, your role chart, a directory of all your people, their contact information, their histories in your business. All that's really important, whether it's for you running the company or for a buyer. And then the other piece is your policies and your processes. Policies are like the rules that you set up about how you run your business. When do you do payroll? What do your benefits look like? What is your social media policy? Or can you use your phones? Can we date employees? Those sort of things. And then your process is the step-by-step sequences for how you do what you do. And so part of making this not so nebulous is really, giving that structure, giving that framework to say, okay, here are the 4 areas of my company that if I can document and capture my way of running this business in all of those areas, now I've got a finished product. I've got something I can hand to people. And so for us as a business, as we've gotten more mature, first, we started developing tons and tons of templates. So we have hundreds of templates that are like, if you want to build a sales playbook, a sales process for your business, a phone script, how to answer the phones, introduction to all the tools, the tech you use in your business, any of those things, there's a starting point inside Trainual. Then we started building AI tools. And so a lot of people have played with things like this these days, but if you just want to prompt it with, here's a few things, like write me a policy or a process that tells my people they come into work 3 days a week and they log in between these hours and whatever, it'll build a whole remote work policy for you. And so we're trying to help in every way possible to just make it easier.
Yeah. Yeah. It's organizing the chaos, right? See what
I
I
love
did there?
it. Yes.
Organized Chaos was Chris's consulting company names for those who didn't get the inside joke. So you and I have had a lot of conversations about what Trainual could do in the eventual exit of a company and the handoff. And I want everybody to think about exit, not just in selling, right? I always say that at some point you will exit your business. And that means it could be a handoff to the second generation. It could be hiring a president to be in charge. But there will be an eventual exit. And why we really hammer documenting these processes and systems and who does what in your company is because if everything, all the knowledge, all the know-how lives in your head, that transition for exit is very challenging. And you can leave the next generation, whether that's employees or a new buyer, in a situation where they're running the business at a disadvantage. So Chris, I'd love to hear from you. And like I said, we've had this conversation about what do you think specifically Trainual does, or what tools specifically do you think that really benefit a business owner that's in this position of like, yes, I'm probably going to exit my company within the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah. So first, if everything's stuck in your head and you can't get out of the business, then, it's like you have to sell the company, owner included, and then you just end up with like a little bit of liquidity and then a job to show for it. And nobody wants that. That's not the dream. I tell people, it's when you get to the end of your business, or even if it's not, like you said, if there's a generational handoff, it's not so much about like the exit being the eventual goal. It's like the optionality of being to exit should be our goal, right? We could sell our business. We could run it profitably. We could give it to a family member. Like that's what we're all striving for, is a business that doesn't rely on us. And a lot of successful business owners will, be very content with having a business that's throwing off cash and lets them work 2 hours a week to check in on some reports and hang out with their kids all the time, right? Like that, we all have different goals. And so in Trainual, it's really about getting your business out of your brain. And for the owner, I think it starts with our roles and responsibilities builder. It's like, what is still on your plate? What is required of you in the business? And so again, with like AI and suggestions and our suggestion engine, we can prompt you to say, here are all the things that you probably do in the business. And you keep just picking the things and it replenishes the suggestions until you've built out, here's everything that the company requires of me. Am I still processing payroll? Am I doing taxes? Am I meeting with the CPA? Am I doing sales calls? Anything that's still required of you. And then little by little in the software, you document one of those things, that responsibility, and you start to describe how you do that thing, the frequency that you do it, the way that you do it, the tools that you use to do it. And so we've got a built-in screen recorder if you're comfortable on video. We've got text, we've got slides, we've got graphics, we've got any way that you want to communicate this. You document that responsibility. And now it's something that you can one-click assign to somebody else to have them take over ownership for in the business. And so I think that's the delegation piece is the most powerful element of the tool. The rest of it is capturing like a mirror image of how your business exists in the real world. It's like the structure of your departments and teams and who does what and is managed by which KPIs. All of that can be defined, but it's really this, it's like a coloring book that you work on over time until you've got this beautiful thing when you zoom out that you can hand to someone else.
Yeah. And Chris and I are working on some exit factor templates that if you decide to employ Trainual in your business, which we suggest that you do, we'll have starting templates of like, here's the baseline foundations of the documents, the roles and responsibilities you have to have filled out. Chris mentioned the number one, which is the owner's roles and responsibilities. It's like definitely has to be documented. So then we have a full package really to hand off to whoever's taking over the business. And if that is a sale down the road to a third party buyer, just imagine if you have this full package of exactly how your business runs, who does what. If for some reason one of your key employee leaves, you say, hey, it's fine. We have a complete recruiting, training, onboarding system ready to go. I mean, it just sets your business apart from all of the others that are competing for the small pool of buyers in the world, and really adds a lot of value. So I've been asking a lot about the features because I want you guys to all understand how powerful this could be for you and your business now, and make you more efficient, but also how it will set you apart in the marketplace when and if you decide to sell the business as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so it's part of packaging up all the knowledge too. It's not just for training or onboarding. It's for having those answers at people's fingertips when and where they need them. And so people that use our platform, you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android or your Google phone in the device, whatever you're using, and see everything, all of the company's best practices. You can search, you can ask it questions. So like if you've ever used a Google Home and Alexa, Siri, it's like that, where you can ask it a question about your business and it returns the answer. And so what I've heard a lot of people say too is when you're first engaging with a buyer, they have a lot of questions about the business. At some point you just say, well, it's in Trainual, like look it up. It's all the knowledge is in there. Go through it just like our employees do.
Yeah. I'd love if we had a case study or example you could share with us of a business that used your platform and then went through some type of transition where it was a lot easier in scope to transition the business because of what they had built out in Trainual.
Oh yeah, I'll give you one very direct example. Someone I know pretty well. He was in my EO forum years ago. Signed up one of the first people on our platform, and he exited his business in 2022. And he said that he got at least a multiple or two extra based on having everything in there. And so it was a couple of things. It was like, first, when the buyer comes to you, to know that all the knowledge is centralized in one place. Again, it checks so many of the boxes for them. When they're asking you questions about the business and you say, oh yeah, we have all of this documented. Imagine how much more professional you seem, right? As a business for that. When we were raising funding, so we brought in investors who are essentially buying a piece of the business. I just designed a whole portion of the application that I invited potential investors into to teach themselves about the culture, the history, the key milestones of Trainual. And people were telling me no one has ever done this before. Like that made it so easy. It cut out so many calls that we would have had to dig into this stuff. So now we can get to the meat of the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's really about trust. It's like if someone is buying your business, the biggest thing they're going to worry about is, are you telling me the truth? Is everything like you say it is? And is it going to work the same way once I own it that it does when you own it? And so trust and that transition is on the buyer's mind. And so the more that you can show them that everything is here, the business runs without me today, the more confident they'll be that the business can run without you post-sale. So Adam, the one I was talking about that exited his business, for him, it was first being able to free himself up for what was next. He took himself, like I did, out of the day-to-day to be able to work on his next business. And he had this company that was just operating well. And then when buyers were interested, he was able to say, yeah, like this is a business I own, but I don't have a job in it. I own this business and it runs without me. And how powerful is that to a buyer? So the transaction went through, everything's great with the business. And there's so many examples of that in, a retail industry of a company that prints shirts, a printing brokerage, an electrical contracting company, a taco truck. I hear these things that are like, I put my heart and soul into this business and now I've got something tangible to show for it that I can shop around to buyers. It's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really powerful. I've seen it with a lot of our clients as well too, that have used it. I know friends that have used it. We're using it. So we're in the middle of putting all of our systems, processes, training, which is a total mess. It's like on OneDrive and SharePoint and Google. And so it's all getting redocumented and reorganized in Trainual. Just a reminder for the audience, we're going to go to you for Q&A in just a few minutes. Chris, I've just got one more question with you. I mean, a lot of this, we talk about it and we talk about systems, processes, documentations. It seems simple. You guys have a great, simple platform to use. One of the issues I see or with the hurdles people have to overcome is they feel like it takes a lot of time to work through this process. And sometimes it does, if you've had a company for 10, 20, 30 years and you're just documenting things for the first time, or maybe redocumenting it, it can be a really big project. So I don't know if just in your expertise, you can give our members just some words of advice of where to start and where to reach out to for help, because you don't have to do this whole process on your own, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have so much to say about this. All right. So first thing, this is not a solo effort. You don't have one person with all of the knowledge in the company, unless you're a business of one. There's usually some shared responsibilities across the business. And so when it comes to documenting, it's really a divide and conquer sort of thing. You figure out who owns which areas or which responsibilities in the business, and then you task your team with, let's chip away at this. Let's record a little bit at a time. Another thing people stress out about is, they think the old school 3-ring binder of this is like a school project. I need to do page by page and make it perfect. It's really just about collecting all of the knowledge into one place. And again, it can be PDFs, it can be documents, it can be slides, it can be things written in our platform. It can be videos you've recorded. It can be YouTube and Vimeo videos that exist that you just want to pull in. It can be Google Docs. Your knowledge of your business is already scattered. It's already somewhere, and you just need to centralize it. So it's more about collecting and capturing the knowledge than it is about creating the knowledge. And then I would say you can also just lean on people across the company. So if you have, for instance, a bookkeeper, and then you have a sales rep, they probably know very little about each other's roles in the business. But if you pair them together and say, interview this person about what they do at the company and how to do it, they're teaching from this like beginner mindset where the naive person is going to ask all these crazy questions that the person that does it every day doesn't even think of. So you can pair people up in the organization and have them chip away at it. And so it's something that you're not going to do in a weekend. It happens over time, but you can do the high ROI stuff very quickly. You can do the orientation, the basics of your company through our templates in like a few hours. You can record some really key processes that you need to delegate to somebody that's starting on Monday in like 20 minutes, so you can get those high ROI elements into the system, and then you just build a little bit at a time from there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's just getting started, getting your team involved. I mean, obviously you guys are in Exit Factor because you're in pursuant of an exit at some point. You don't have to tell them that's why you're doing this. It could be cross-training, things like that, but pulling them in. Functionally too, one thing you mentioned, Chris, that the software does that I find is a really easy way for documenting this stuff is screen recording, right? So as you're going through and you're doing a process on your computer, if you're a very technology heavy company, especially just recording your screen, that's good enough for some of this documentation, right?
Yeah, done is better than well done. And if you don't like video, you can, we've got this other tool, Trainual Capture, that is just a little browser plugin, and it'll watch everything you do and take screenshots and watch your clicks. And it'll build a process for you that has text and screenshots that says, click on this, log into this, type in this. It builds that process. So there's a lot of ways to capture what you're doing.
All right. Well, before we go to Q&A with the audience, so start thinking of your questions. I see one already popped in the chat. You can pop yours as well in there. Chris, any last words of advice to our clients that are pursuing this exit path in the future?
I think, like we talked about, just make progress in any way that you can. Get started. And whether it's using AI, whether it's using your teammates at your company, whether it's using our free customer success reps that'll jump on calls with you, or one of the hundreds of consultants trained in our system or other systems around the world, you can get this work done, and you can get it done quickly, like anything else in the business, if you put the focus and the resources toward it. So if you recognize that my business will be worth more with the instructions included, then you just need to prioritize that. That's what it's all about.
I love it. Instructions included.
Yeah.